I think for thematic consistency, it's important that the Titans cannot create things straight up, merely adopt or repurpose other things for their goals. I think that's, I would almost go as far as to say that's almost irrefutably true at this point. Like, there is basically nothing that I can think of that the Titans genuinely created. And as more time passes, the more it seems like they just took something else and then just changed it. Doesn't Aluneth suggest Titans can create stuff? Aluneth also would suck every Titan's dick for no charge for nothing. Aluneth would suck all their dicks. So you don't get to use Aluneth as a fucking example. He literally is a Titan fucking simp. He's the biggest Titan simp of anyone. Aluneth would, it's fucking stupid. It's kind of like asking like Xalatath to like say nice things about the Titans or to ask her to begrudge the Void Lords or something like that. It's just like, that's not gonna happen. It's like Odin, remember? Oh, therefore it's irrefutable that the Titans are the source of all creation. It's like, no, they're not. I'm starting to feel pity for the Titans. They're so desperate to be seen as creators, to satiate their magic addiction, to be like Azeroth. It's pathetic. It's pretty bad, dude. Where does Elune tie in is what I want to know. That's too broad of a question. This is scarily comparable to Fel and how it turns green only when demons go through the twisting nether. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that because there's a fractal in here that I'm almost certain is like a direct fractal for Sargeras and Argus. It's pretty crazy. They do create things, prisons, and yeah, prisons. But to be honest, I always have to wonder, Angry, is it possible that they are themselves in some kind of prison? And I like to think that there is a side to the Titans where like they too are imprisoned by their very nature, or like their nature of order, and perhaps the means by which they have altered their forms, if they have, that they're imprisoned now too, and that they can't get out of it, and that all of their actions and things are partially anyway the result of this prison that they exist in, similar to Anduin Rin, or really similar to the Jailer. I mean, think about that. Like, the Primus discovered a way to inscribe control runes on a body and basically use a vessel to imprison somebody. And Chronicle Volume 4 really leans into this. I'm not even to the BFA and Shadowlands section, and there's like 2 or 3 different instances. I think it refers to it with Agrimar, with the avatar of Sargeras, of course, the avatar of Illidan being Sargeras' avatar. It really, I feel like is hinting that like a body can be very much separately inscribed or serve as like an imprisonment vessel for a spirit. And I almost wonder if that's what happened to the Titans, right? Maybe the old gods are all the flesh that the Titans used to have that they shed off. And it's just like a cancer that they stuck on Azeroth and were like, here, bitch, have this. But no, there's nothing that we can't go that way because they're made by Void Lords and all that stuff, right? It's like, doesn't make any sense though. They seem more akin to mortals and life and spirit and decay than they do void. Like they just use void, and I don't know. It's so annoying. It's so. The Titans' old bodies, that makes a surprising amount of sense though. The old gods. Look, maybe the Titans sought to ascend beyond their mortality. Look, guys, I'm very heavily fucking with the idea that both Elune and Anshe were formerly mortal creatures of some kind. That they were mortals that ascended to become gods. And that's like a thing in fantasy that's like not even, that exists in World of Warcraft. Like Vol'jin has literally ascended and has been prepped to become a demigod. And he was a mortal. Like Bonsandi also already has been a mortal being that was ascended to become a god or demigod-esque being. If Loa can do that, and Loa is a very broad term for the idea of worship and fealty and sacrifice and all those things, then who's to say that the upstart goddess Elune used to not be a goddess? You know? Maybe she was something more akin to like a Queen Ashara or someone that was like very powerful or in touch with a certain cosmological force that then like reached for divinity and became a demigod or became a god of some kind. So like the idea, frankly, that the Titans used to all be some kind of mortal being or something, I'm not even against that. And the idea that Sargeras too was once potentially a mortal being isn't even that insane to me either. The idea that perhaps they shed their frail mortality, but were as such bound to kind of the temperament and behavioral instincts that are associated with each cosmological force. And now they're all kind of doing what they do, gods as gods. And, you know, we are basically maybe the only ones that are kind of free in that way, free to make our own choices and do those things where perhaps the Titans and other eternal beings are not. So I don't know. I can still fuck with the idea that like, not just Eonar, but the Titans themselves are victims of something else. And a lot of times, as we were reading earlier with arcane magics, what is one of the first things that happens to people who use arcane magics? They become very arrogant and prideful, don't they? And when you think about the Titans, when I think about the Titans anyway, them being the supreme arcane users, part of me thinks that they're probably much like that. In that if they could shed any semblance of mortality or anything like that, that they could potentially take on a form more perfect, more divine. You know what I mean? And there's even been times where I've thought, God damn, they died to Sargeras on purpose. They died to him on purpose because they wanted to be set free from whatever vessel they were bound into. And now they're acting outside of the bounds of those vessels, like the Eternal Ones. Think about that. Imagine if we took all the Eternal Ones and ripped their souls out of their bodies. What would that soul do? How would it act? How would it behave? What power would it manifest? That's what my mind comes to. What are the Titans? What are they? In their core form, without a body, without this stuff, what is it? Right? Great fractal of the Mechanomes of Mechagon here. I'm glad that you recognize it because I don't remember a lot of Mechagon. My theory is that the Titans were corrupted by Order, and most likely Constellars, and duped into thinking that the Pantheon is the real deal, despite just being chess pieces of Order that are being played to control the material plane. And if I had to identify one being who was responsible for the Order playing the Titans, I think you all know who I would pick. It's the guy who shares the naming scheme with every Constellar. It's Norganon. It's Norganon. It's why, in the art with the Pantheon and the stars, Norganon is right behind Eonar. Like he's controlling or commanding her or working with her or something like that. Norganon never speaks a fucking word on the seat of the Pantheon. And besides Eonar, he's the only one who acts without Aman'Thul commanding him to do something. Let that sink in for a second. People perceive that Aman'Thul is the one in control. Then how are people like Norganon and Eonar acting separate? How are they doing that? It's because they're not controlled. You know why? Because they're the source of the control. Because Norganon and Eonar are the ones doing the controlling. Because Norganon and Eonar are like the Primus and the Jailer. I think Aman'Thul could also be part of that. It could be that Norganon is doing that with Aman'Thul, or Eonar is using Norganon as a... Like, there's definitely, between Norganon, Eonar, and Aman'Thul, there's definitely something, a means of control that should not be happening. Like, that should not be occurring. And I really think Norganon is the best fucking answer. When you read the RPG lore, it says Norganon is completely unfeeling. It says Norganon is utterly passionless. Think about this. Imagine a person that is utterly passionless. They have zero passions. They're not compassionate towards other people either. Passion and compassion are two different things. But imagine that. Someone without any passion or compassion or empathy, we usually classify that as like a psychopath. But regardless of that, Norganon also knows everything. It says in the RPG lore, Norganon knows everything and is utterly passionless. Like, yikes, bro. If we're gonna pin someone being the overly orderly freak, it's gotta be Norganon, right? It's gotta be Norganon. Think about all the fucking keepers and constructs. The fucking Stone Watcher of Norganon that tells us about visitation. The fucking Keeper of the Discs of Norganon. The guy who goes nuts at Ulduar and starts fucking over through manipulation all the others is Norganon's Keeper. Like, what? What? What the fuck? The guy who inspired the Mechanomes to make everything into a machine and orderly, that's all inspired through Mimiron, another one of Norganon's Keepers. Like, what the fuck? If we're gonna pin clockwork, mechanized, mechanist style order of the cosmos to anyone in particular, I really think we need to stop pointing the finger at Aman'Thul and we need to point it right at Norganon, okay? Look, I think Aman'Thul could still be complicit in some way, but there's just something about him. I don't know what it is. I don't know, I'm driven to like believe that Aman'Thul and Sargeras, for some reason, something about like, it's like order and chaos. I don't even know what it is. It's like they were manipulated by other people around them. And it reminds me a lot of like Malfurion and Illidan too. Obviously you mix in Tyrande and then you've got Eonar. And then maybe you mix in Xavius and you've got like Norganon. I don't know.